Angela, I've heard it said before that prayer doesn't help. Help helps. What would you say to somebody that had said that?
You can help and try to do a lot of things for yourself. But I've been praying a lot for some family members that are in a place where it doesn't matter what I say or do, they're not going to change. And it really is going to take the power of God. And I have felt really discouraged because I don't see anything changing in my family members. So I was leaving home just a couple weeks ago, and I was going, Lord, I'm feeling really discouraged. Can you just show me something that is a miracle somewhat, that I can say, oh, look, you're moving. But then at the same time, I was also complaining about some things not happening at home, and I wish my son would do this or that or whatever, and like cleaning and doing dishes and things like that. But he doesn't ever do those things. He pretty much doesn't, it's not his thing. He's got busyness. So that particular day, I'm coming home from work, and I walk into the house with him doing everything I prayed for. All the dishes being done, him cleaning up his stuff, his doing his laundry, all those kinds of things that I got immediate gratification from that little miracle, seeing that God moved in his heart to do all those things without having been asked, gave me hope for the bigger things that I'm asking the Lord to do.
Hey, Julie, I've heard people say that some people believe in coincidence and some people believe in miracles. Who's to say who's right? What would you say to somebody that said that?
I would say God doesn't have coincidences. God has miracles. And I have lived these numerous times in my life, and I'm sorry, I'm already going to start crying. When I was a single mom, I didn't have a lot of money. And my son was in this math class, advanced math, super proud of him. And apparently he had been using a friend's calculator the whole semester. And it was time for his test at the end of the semester. And he came to me and he goes, Mom, I'm really sorry. I didn't want to bother you with this because I know you don't have a lot of money, but I need a scientific calculator for my math class to take my final. And I said, okay, when do you need it by? He goes, at the end of the week. And it was Christmas time. And I told him, I said, okay, we'll figure it out, but we're going to pray about it and ask God for some help, because I did not have the money to buy my son a calculator. It was Christmas presents or it was a calculator. And so I prayed and I asked God for provision. And the next day, my son came home from school. He was so excited, and he goes, Mom, you're never gonna believe it, but my friend who I'd been borrowing a calculator from this whole semester, which mind you, I didn't know he was borrowing. He didn't tell me. He didn't want me to feel bad that I couldn't afford a calculator. She gave him a Christmas present, and it was the calculator. And my 6'4", 300-pound offensive lineman, a child, was crying. He's like, Mom, God provided this for us. And I said, yes, he did. That's what happens when you pray. That is what happens. That is not a coincidence. That was God answering our prayers, and that was God confirming my son's faith also.
Lorraine, you've heard the questions I've asked about what you would say to somebody if they said prayer doesn't help, help helps, or some people believe in coincidences and some people believe in miracles. Who's to say who's right? What would you say to somebody that said that?
Well, I have experienced miracles. Something's ringing. Any rate, and it's absolutely a miracle. I have experiences in my life. One of the very first things that I ever experienced, I'm hearing ringing. Any rate, is when I was just a brand new believer. I was infertile. I had lots of problems because my mom had taken a drug, DES, when she was pregnant with me. So I had lots of reproductive troubles, and I wasn't going to be able to have any children. And I had some precancerous situation, and it was getting worse. So they were going to talk about doing a hysterectomy, and I was 21 years old. and I wanted children. Well, I saw this Psalm 113, and it talked about that God made the barren woman a happy mother of children. And I didn't pray it, but I just thought, well, I think he can do that. So I was at the doctor's office, and sitting in the doctor's office, and all of a sudden I felt this deep burning inside my body, a real deep hot inside my body. And I was there to redo the testing and to be ready to be sent forward to the specialist to maybe have a hysterectomy. And I got back there and did the test, and by the time I got back to the doctor's office that I worked at, I wasn't having any pain anymore. And I told the gal that I was working with about it. She said, well, I prayed for you to be healed while you were gone. And you know what? I was healed. I didn't even believe in healing. I barely thought God even liked me, much less would heal me. And I proceeded to have children. And the wonderful thing about that is that years later, I went to another doctor who did a surgery on me, and he couldn't figure out how I'd had them. So God gave me those children. He made me the happy mother of children. Another thing to remember, too, is that it can be little miracles. It doesn't have to be a big thing like that. It can be him paying my grocery bill, or coming home when I was absolutely broke and had absolutely no money for food, and I found $50 taped to my front door one day. God, I think that's a miracle. You know, that's not a coincidence, because no one knew what my situation was, but he spoke to somebody and asked them to do that for me, and they did. So, anyway.
Hey, Brent, is there any power in prayer?
There's absolutely a lot of power in prayer. When we talked about doing this, one of the first things that came to my mind is back about 2008 or so, we had lost pretty much everything. And we were living in a couple of RV trailers. And at night, Liddell and I would basically be praying at night, like, what are we supposed to learn out of this? And it was a good long while before we got any kind of an answer. But that's the thing I wanted to say anything about was, when you're praying for something, it doesn't mean God's going to say yes or no by the time you say amen. We prayed for over a year. And eventually, somebody talked to somebody that mentioned something to somebody else, and a friend of the family heard somebody else talking, kind of thing. And we ended up renting a 3-bedroom house in Springfield for $100 a month because somebody talked to somebody. A lot had to line up to make that happen. So you're not always going to get an answer as soon as you say amen.
Hey, Cecil, do you think there's power in prayer?
I definitely do. Oh, back in 1980, I had a home over in Scotts Valley. I was 3 months behind on payments. They was about to take it away. So we prayed to the Lord, and I couldn't afford a real estate agent. So I put it into an advisor paper. And most people want it on the front page or somewhere very visible. So they put it on the very back page of that. And I went to work. Come home that night, and lo and behold, I had 3 different people at the end of my driveway wanting to look at my place. And within a week, it was sold. And that's back when the interest rates were between 10 and 15%. And it was gone in a week. Everything was done. All I had to do was move. And that was only God doing that. I was totally and thoroughly blessed from head to toe, and couldn't have been more happy. Because He is real and He is awesome.
My friend Victor, is there any power in prayer?
I certainly think so. I had a friend that he made a big mistake, and he had a major trial, and there's a whole lot of details involved that are all really important, but it makes kind of a long story. But anyway, the night before his trial, I really felt like God woke me up in the middle of the night, and I prayed for him, and I prayed the whole night. And in the morning, I went to his hearing, and I just thought that I should walk to see where the courtroom was going to be, and I ran into him and his lawyer, and I ended up telling him that I had something to say. This was at the exact moment that she had asked him if there was anybody that had anything they wanted to say on his behalf, and I just showed up at that moment. And I told her I did, and she said, I would really like it if you went ahead and said that. And we went in, we had the whole thing. I said my deal, some other people did too, at least one other person. And when it's all done, the judge said that the night before, he had planned on, he was determined that he was going to give this guy the maximum sentence possible. And, but that, you know, his heart had changed overnight. And he ended up, the guy got just supervised parole at home. He got home supervision is what he got. No time in actual prison at all. And I know there's another lady that also woke up and was praying for him too. So I totally believe that prayer changes things. I know sometimes it changes me more than it changes my circumstance, but prayer changes things.